It was a late autumn evening, and I had just returned from a long day at work. Midnight had come and gone, and the neighborhood was silent, save for the occasional rustling of leaves in the cold breeze. Exhausted, all I wanted was to sit on the couch with a cold drink and let the stillness of the night wash over me. The house was warm and quiet when I stepped inside. The kids were upstairs asleep, and everything felt peaceful. Even the dog, curled up in his bed near the kitchen, barely stirred as I entered. I grabbed a drink from the fridge, sank into the couch, and let my eyes close for a moment. The TV stayed off. Silence felt better than the noise of the world. For a while, it was just the sound of my breathing and the rhythmic ticking of a clock on the wall. The peace didn't last long. Suddenly, all the lights in the house flickered and went out, leaving everything in darkness. That faint popping sound of the power shutting off sent a wave of frustration through me. The house had a habit of losing electricity at the most inconvenient times. Reaching for my phone to use its flashlight, I glanced out the window to see if the other houses had been affected. Across the street, the glow of porch lights and illuminated windows told me it was just us. Something about that realization unsettled me. The dog, usually calm, let out a low growl, his eyes fixed on the back door. That's when I noticed it was slightly ajar. I knew for a fact I'd closed it earlier. The unease turned into a cold knot in my stomach. Moving quietly, I approached the door, flashlight aimed at the ground. The wind stirred the leaves outside, and in the faint moonlight, I saw footprints leading away from the house toward the backyard shed. The shed door was open, swinging gently on its hinges. I stepped outside to investigate, shutting the door behind me to keep the house warm. The night air was sharp, and the street felt eerily quiet. I glanced around to see if anyone else was awake, but saw only dark windows and empty driveways. I was about to head back inside when I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. It was faint, a flash of light through one of the side windows. Someone was in the house. Panic surged through me as I rushed back to the front door. Locked. I jiggled the handle, trying not to make too much noise, but it wouldn't budge. My phone was still in my pocket, but the thought of using it to call for help didn't come fast enough. My first thought was the family inside, the kids and the one person I trusted most. They were upstairs, vulnerable. The dog's bark broke the silence, loud and fierce, coming from inside the house. Whoever was in there must have startled him. I moved around to the back door, now fully open, and stepped quietly into the kitchen. The faint beam of a flashlight danced on the walls in the living room ahead. My heart pounded as I grabbed a heavy object, a candlestick, from the counter. Before I could confront whoever was inside, I heard faint shuffling upstairs. My stomach dropped. They were heading toward the kids' rooms. Without thinking, I darted to the base of the stairs and whispered as loudly as I dared, "Hide! Someone's in the house. Hide now." I heard the faint sound of movement upstairs, and I prayed they'd heard me. My grip tightened on the candlestick as I turned my focus back to the intruders. One of them was rifling through drawers in the living room, while another was now making their way down the hall toward the stairs. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. The dog, sensing danger, suddenly bolted toward the intruder in the hallway. His bark turned into a fierce growl as he lunged. The flashlight beam swung wildly, and I heard a man curse before the sound of a heavy thud. The dog had tackled him, buying me precious seconds. I darted up the stairs and found everyone huddled in one of the bedrooms. They locked the door and were hidden away in the closet, just as I'd hoped. I whispered for them to stay quiet and hurried back downstairs. The intruders must have realized things were escalating. I heard hurried footsteps retreating toward the back door. By the time I reached the kitchen, they were gone, disappearing into the dark yard. The dog stood at the doorway, panting and growling in the direction they had fled. Moments later, I called the police, who arrived quickly and swept the area. They found signs of forced entry and evidence that the intruders had been searching for valuables. A few things were missing, nothing irreplaceable, but the fear and vulnerability they left behind were far worse. Later, As I pieced everything together, one detail chilled me to the core. The intruders had reached the upstairs hallway and tried the door to one of the kids' rooms. It was locked. The family had hidden just in time. If the dog hadn't intervened when he did, I shudder to think how things might have ended. Since that night, the house hasn't felt the same. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the corner of my vision, makes me wonder if they'll come back. The dog now sleeps outside the bedroom doors every night, his loyalty and courage a constant reminder of how close we came to disaster. Life has gone on, but the memory of that night lingers. It's a sharp reminder that safety is never guaranteed, even in the quietest of neighborhoods.